Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 825. 825 Sunday, June the 30th, 2019. Thank you so much for tuning in this Sunday morning. Okay, don't forget today is Dumbass of the Week day, and as I said yesterday, going to be a very, very difficult week, I think, for Dumbass of the Week. I expect it to be very close competition. Obviously, we have AOC, who's made some asshat comments. Joe Biden, obviously. We just have so many this week. It's going to be very tough, I think, for everybody. But we'll do our best, and I'm sure at the end of it we'll come up with a winner for Dumbass of the Week and the second and third place finishers. I expect it's going to be a pretty close competition, though. A lot of contributions this week to Dumbass of the Week. So remember to get your vote in the comments section of this video. Okay. Now, let's get into the news of the day. And quite honestly, just let me bring something to your attention for those of you who are kind of new to my videos. The primary thing that drives the TowerGate videos is the information that relates to the Spygate, the coup against Trump, whatever you want to call it. That is the primary focus of TowerGate videos, and that's the total focus of my TowerGate timeline. On my blog page. But, I do a 30-minute video every day, and quite honestly, some days there just isn't that much going on with new information about Spygate or deep state coup related topics. There just isn't much out there that's new. And so, I do have a lot of people on this channel that like to talk a little politics, and so if I don't have that much Spygate news to talk about, then I fill the rest of the time with whatever the political things are that are going on, because I engage in a little bit of political analysis as well. But my primary focus will always be the information about the deep state coup or Spygate or whatever. I do all my research, number one, looking for anything having to do with the topic of Spygate, deep state coup, whatever. Once I exhaust all that information, if I don't have enough to complete 30 minutes, then I go look at other things. But that will always be the primary focus of my TowerGate videos. But some days there just really isn't anything new to report. And so that's why some days we'll spend more time talking about the political things. And during election season, debates or election things, primaries and things and such, we may get a little bit more into the political stuff. But my TowerGate videos will always be centered toward Spygate information. And if there's just not much going on with that particular day, then mostly the video is going to be talking probably more politics. And I know a lot of you guys really don't care for that kind of stuff. I think most people come here for the latest information on Spygate and the deep state coup. So that's what I'm committed to, and that's what these TowerGate videos are really primarily intended to do. But just try to understand that some days there just really isn't anything new to report. So that's why we do a little bit more political stuff on some days. But I always look for Spygate-related news first. Okay, so now we got that out of the way. And we do have a little bit of Spygate stuff today, but today's mostly political stuff. So I understand your complaints when I read them in the comments section about this particular topic. Okay, so as you know, the American Center for Law and Justice, which is headed up by Jay Sekulow, one of Trump's attorneys, has recently come into a lot of emails, including the ones relating to Samantha Power. And they're still going through all these emails. There's a lot. And we learned in the first couple days about all these emails with Samantha Power, and we see that the same thing that was going on with Strzok and Page and people inside the FBI small group, the same type of conversations were going on within the folks within the inner circle of the National Security Agency, or National Security Division, I should say, which would be Susan Rice, National Security Advisor. Of course, the UN ambassador falls under the National Security Advisor, and then the various people who would deal with them. So now we see the bias in the State Department, the FBI, the DOJ, and now we're seeing it within the National Security part of the Obama administration, which would have been Susan Rice's people. And that's where Samantha Power falls in. So as they continue to go through more and more documents over there at ACLJ, I've been looking at the website the last 2 days. There's a lot there, and they're putting up stuff as they go through it. So it looks like they have now pretty much dialed in who was doing the majority of the unmaskings. And they have determined that the majority of the unmaskings were being done by John Brennan, Mr. Potato Head, Susan Rice, Obama's national security advisor, along with, of course, Samantha Power. Now, we know that Samantha Power, when she was giving her testimony, she said that of those 260 unmaskings in her name, she said that she didn't do all those herself and that other people would have been doing those under her name. Now, I don't remember or don't even know if there were follow-up questions to that. I think there should have been obvious ones like, oh, really? So there were other people unmasking under your name. Were they doing that on your orders or someone else's orders? And who were these other people? Who would have been the other people that would be able to do these unmaskings under your name? I mean, it's not like just anybody can do that, because as we learned from Mike Rogers, NSA director, how that process works. They come over and do a request for an unmasking. They fill out a form. There's a paper trail. Mike Rogers said that the person requesting the unmasking is the person who gets the information. And there's a paper trail. Now, I imagine that this is one of the things that John Durham is probably, and Barr, are trying to get from the intelligence community, from the CIA, probably from the NSA as well. Who did the unmasking requests? Who? What were the dates, and who were the people who they wanted to unmask? I assume that this would be the place where Durham and Barr are digging in to try to get to the bottom of that, because ultimately these unmaskings are going to... It was really one of the first things that we learned about in this whole Spygate fiasco when it began back in the spring of 2017, when we started learning about it. It was one of the first revelations that came out. And then it's been pushed off to the back burner. Haven't had many people talking about it, but now it's coming back. And it's going to end up becoming a crucial part of just one of the critical pieces of the overall process of what they were trying to do to frame Trump. So it's going to become more important again, or important again, as it was back in the spring of 2017 when we first learned about it. So it looks like there's a lot of information, according to what we're learning from the ACLJ website, that when they got these after waiting a year to get this information, there's a lot of redactions. A lot of redactions. Way too many, according to the ACLJ. So they're now that they've received these emails, really a lot of redactions. They're learning a lot, but there's a lot of important information that's redacted. So now it looks like Jay Sekulow and ACLJ are saying they're going to go back to court to petition the court to get more of these to get these redactions removed, to get these blacked out sections, entire pages completely blacked out. And the argument that they're making is that they don't think that this has to do with sources and methods as much as it does hiding things that could be embarrassing or incriminating to the Obama administration, to the National Security Division, where or the NSC, the National Security Council, that Susan Rice was head of. So it looks like they're getting a lot of information, but there's still a lot more information that they could unearth if, in fact, these documents were not so heavily redacted. And we're talking literally entire pages of nothing but blacked out pages, one after another, huge sections of redactions. There's probably almost as many words redacted as there are unredacted. So it is a heavily redacted release that they got, and they waited a year for it. So yes, they're going to go back and try to get these again, but with far fewer redactions, because they're absolutely certain that there's critical information in there that is redacted, that would give them a lot more insight on as to who did what and when, and who authorized what, and who knew what. And of course the names of the people being unmasked. That's almost all redacted. So they're not really getting to see who was unmasked. And that's a problem. Okay? So, anyway, quite a bit of information that they're getting, but still a lot more information, and real critical information that they're just simply not able to see because of the redactions. But they have determined at this point, I guess through some process of elimination, or just, just looking at the documents and being able to add 2 and 2, connect the dots, they're determining that Brennan, Rice, and Power would have been the 3 people who would have gotten requested all these unmaskings, or at least ways they would have been the ones directing the unmaskings. And so this is what we are learning, and I don't think this would surprise anybody at all. It doesn't surprise me, other than Samantha Power. It wouldn't surprise us to learn the CIA director or that the National Security Advisor were doing these unmaskings, even though the number that we're talking is outrageous, and that certainly should be looked at, and that continues to this day, by the way. In fact, unmaskings are up greatly over the last 2 years. Even more unmaskings being done today than were being done back then, and that's something they need to get a handle on. But for the purpose of this discussion, it's Brennan and Rice that wouldn't surprise you that they would be doing the ones unmasking. The one that's really curious is Samantha Power, because she was the UN ambassador. Not really something that you would think. The UN ambassador is not an investigative position. The UN ambassador doesn't do investigations, right? So I guess what they're saying, though, is that when Obama came into office, he made the UN ambassador position a cabinet-level appointment position, meaning it sort of gave it more importance and tied it more into national security under the National Security Advisor, which would be Susan Rice. Most presidents, the 2-3 previous administrations, the UN ambassador is not considered a cabinet position, cabinet-level position. But Obama made it a cabinet-level position. Trump administration does not use the UN ambassador as a cabinet-level position. So that's something that was extraordinary, unusual, and probably there's a reason for it, and they'll probably arrive at that at some point. But at this point, this is what we do know from the ACLJ's website, is that they're pretty confident that Brennan, Rice, and Power were the 3 doing the lion's share of unmasking requests. Now, let's get to some other news. And we still have a little bit more toward the end on some Spygate stuff, but mostly political for the next 15 or 20 minutes. Okay, so it's kind of interesting. I was talking yesterday, I should say, about Kamala Harris and where she really got her start in politics, which, as I told you, was that she was the mistress of San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown. And keep in mind, Willie Brown was married at that time. He was 61 years old. And Kamala Harris was 29. So she was having this extramarital affair with Willie Brown, and he was repaying her by giving her, good, particularly 4 positions in government, which moved her up the chain and put her in position that she could run for a higher office, an elective office. He put her into 4 appointed positions, which gave her the background that she would have needed to run for an elective office. And so that's really the origins of how Kamala Harris got into elective office, was that she was sleeping with the San Francisco mayor, Willie Brown. So we're talking about that yesterday, and Willie Brown comes out I don't know if it was yesterday, but yesterday we're learning about this op-ed that he wrote, and I think it was local in San Francisco, where he says that Kamala Harris, nor any of the Democrats in the 2020 field that he sees right now, has any chance of beating Trump in 2020. Willie Brown says Kamala nor any of the Democrats can beat Trump in 2020. And he's a far left-wing, I'm sure hardcore anti-Trumper, former mayor of San Francisco. Willie Brown, hardcore liberal, says none of those liberals on that stage, none of the 20 that we've seen so far, can beat Donald Trump. Exactly what I've been saying, exactly what many people are saying. There just isn't anyone there that can get anywhere near Trump, quite honestly. Not even close. So, there we go, the Willie Brown update. And one other thing about Kamala Harris, she's obviously been caught in a couple of lies. That story she told about being bused, turns out that probably wasn't true. Of course, she told the Tupac lie. She lies all the time, and I think that's what's eventually going to get Kamala Harris. She's eventually going to get caught up, and her lies are going to catch up to her. As soon as somebody starts calling her out on them, they haven't yet. But as soon as someone... Remember, Kamala Harris is very vulnerable. It's just no one's hit her yet, because she's been so low in the polls. But if she shoots up in the high teens, low 20s, she'll become a target. And believe me, people will start uncovering her lies. She lies too much to go very much farther than where she's at now. But keep in mind, she tries to pass herself off as a poor black child when she was a little. First of all, she's not black. Her mother is from India. Her father was from Jamaica, and then she actually went 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. She lived in Canada, and she was by no means poor. Both her parents had master's degrees. She didn't grow up poor or black. Now we've got that corrected. Let's move on to the next thing. Well, a lot of you are hearing about this, and we're hearing that Pelosi is furious. Madam Botox is furious with Chuck the Cuck because he did not hold the line in the Senate on keeping enough Democratic senators together to keep the Senate bill for the emergency border funding from being able to pass. And of course, only 8 Democrats voted against it. And so I forget how many, like 30 or something Democrats voted for it. So that was able to get out of the Senate, and that blew up the whole thing. It got to the House, and Nancy Pelosi had no choice but to allow it to come up for a vote, and of course the thing passed. So now Madam Botox is under complete assault from the progressive wing of her party in the House, and of course she's blaming Chuck the Cuck. So now Nancy and Chuck are at each other's throats. They're at odds with one another, and the progressives in the House are going complete apeshit. They're led by, of course, the wild-eyed commie, Ocasio-Cortez. So look for the divisions between the progressives and the sort of business Democrats or moderate Democrats. Look for that division to continue to widen and get even worse as we move through the process. And this doesn't surprise any of us. I mean, we knew this was coming. We knew there's been this great divide, and at some point you can only pretend it's not there for so long. Eventually it is going to manifest itself, and that's when they start counting votes. that's when it shows up. And that's what we're seeing now. I expect that we're going to see this gap widen, and we're going to see things get really, really crazy on the Democratic side as they try to decide whether they're going to be a communist party or a centrist party. And right now, I don't know if I could put my money on either side. I think it could go either way. But regardless, it's going to cause a major split in this party. It's going to cause a major split in this party, and it's going to cost them 2 to 3 election cycles. They're going to get their ass kicked badly in 2 to 3 election cycles until they sort it out. Okay, so if you live in California and you're a woman and you think that you may have committed a crime that you may be getting caught for, you may want to get out of the state. You may want to go to Canada or somewhere, because they've just passed a law in California which they have now voted to put men into women's prisons. These are men who would identify themselves as women. So now if you're a man in California convicted of a felony to go to prison, if you say that you identify as being a woman, you get to go to a woman's prison. Now, strangely, this would include men who were convicted of rape and sexual assault charges against women. So even if you're a man who's going to be sentenced to prison in California for rape or sexual assault or something against a woman, you can still claim that you are like a trans or that you identify as a woman, and you will get to go to a woman's prison. Boy, that just sounds like it's going to have a lot of problems. Do you know what I mean? I just don't see that working out very well. Well, what is this? We have Crazy Uncle Joe. And as I said yesterday, and I'll probably say every day from now on, Joe, get out. Get out now. Get out now. It's only, the longer you stick around, Joe, the worse it's going to get. Get out now, Joe. But we have Crazy Uncle Joe, another gaffe, in my opinion. He's saying that that we should put insurance companies in jail for misleading ads. Put insurance companies in jail. First of all, I don't think you can put an insurance company in jail. You can put people who work at the insurance company in jail, but you can't really put an insurance company in jail. So I'm not sure what he means by that, but he says put insurance companies in jail for misleading ads. And as I've said, no, what we should do is put politicians in jail for running misleading ads. And how about putting corrupt FBI and DOJ and State Department and National Security Council officials and Obama administration officials in jail for misleading FISA courts? How about that one? Well, we have Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, who were attacking Wall Street, as it appears that both are attending fundraisers in the upcoming week with Wall Street banks. And of course, we know that Kamala Harris is getting a lot of money from Hollyweird. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen the clip. It's pretty funny, but I'll mention it in case you haven't. You might want to check it out. It's only a minute long. It's the clip of Don Lemon over there at CNN when he, when Trump was talking about the crisis at the border. Don Lemon came out and said, "Yeah, there's no crisis at the border. It's all made up, and everyone knows it. It's a big charade. It's not real. It's not true. It's a facade. The whole 9 yards." And then, after we have this man and his daughter wash up from drowning in the Rio Grande, all of a sudden now Lemon has changed his tune, and he goes on and he does this with a straight face. I kid you not. He says there is a serious crisis at the border, and anyone who doesn't believe that, is crazy. So here we have Don Lemon telling us not more than just several weeks ago that there was no crisis whatsoever at the border. It was totally manufactured. But now he's saying that there is a crisis at the border, and that anyone who doesn't know that or believe that is crazy. Clearly, he is crazy. Now, keep in mind, Don Lemon was awarded a couple years ago the worst journalist of the year, or news presenter, I think it was. He is absolutely got to be the worst, in my opinion. I mean, this guy literally just does not tell the truth. I mean, he's not a newsman at all. He's just a straight-up propaganda artist. That's all this guy is. And his ratings are in the tank. I have no idea. Maybe they're afraid to fire him because he's black. I don't know. But he must feel awfully comfortable in his position, but he continues, despite his devastatingly low ratings, continues to go on and say this stuff. I mean, the guy's a total asshat. And I literally cannot even stand to watch this guy. I mean, literally. I mean, he just drives me nuts. But the 1 minute clip is worth watching if you haven't seen it. So, a little bit of a follow-up. Some of this is stuff we heard before, but now it's even more written in stone, more proof, more evidence of something here that we've known regarding James Clapper, the unwitting idiot. The unwitting idiot, the former DNI. So Clapper was the guy who was behind the plot to expand getting this raw intelligence out to all 17 agencies just 3 weeks before the Trump inauguration. He was the one who was pushing this. Now, he wasn't doing this without Obama's knowledge, and probably was doing it on behalf of Obama. This is not something that the DNI would just come up with on his own. The DNI just doesn't sit back, okay, I'm just going to start releasing raw intelligence to everyone. You know, I mean, that is not something you would do without the president either directing it or approving of it. And that would generally not just require the president. He would want to have his national security advisor. He'd want to have his lawyers. He'd want to have quite a few people saying, yeah, this is okay to do. It's legal to do. It's a safe thing to do. It's a good thing to do. Now, all that's bull. We know that none of that's true. That's why it was never done before. So we know that it was definitely a heinous act. It was a malevolent act. There's nothing good that would come out of that. Nothing good that would come out of that. No reasonable person would say, hey, this is a good idea, let's do this. And I'm sure Barr and Durham are going to be all over this. So it looks like it was Clapper, but he wouldn't have done that on his own. He had to be doing this on behalf of Obama, along with Susan Rice, and others would have had to been involved in that decision. Clapper wasn't doing this on his own, but he was the one that was obviously tasked with driving it and making it happen, and they did. And of course, we know from the interview with Anderson Cooper, Clapper saying that it was Obama who is the one who initiated this investigation. But now we're getting a little bit better wording on that. And the specific wording now Clapper is using is that it was Obama who ordered Peter's been stroking us. Peter Strzok. Obama ordered Peter Strzok to kick off Operation Crossfire Hurricane. Obama ordered Peter's been stroking us to kick off Operation Crossfire Hurricane. So, again, more evidence of what I think most of us have suspected for a long time, and what Durham and Barr, certainly at the point of the investigation threat now, they have to know that this is no longer just a case of the small group at the FBI and a few corrupt DOJ officials. This was being run at the very top. Obama was the one directing Clapper to expand raw intelligence to all these agencies. Obama directed Peter's been stroking us to launch Operation Crossfire Hurricane. And Obama had to know about all those unmaskings. And my guess is he was getting briefed on every bit of it, because it was flowing up the chain to the National Security Advisor. That would be Susan Rice. I'm telling you, this goes all the way to the top. And that's probably what's freaking Barr and Durham out. Because they were maybe thinking, okay, we got a few corrupt FBI guys. We're going to hit a few corrupt FBI guys, a couple people in DOJ, maybe a couple intelligence people, and we're going to wag our finger at some foreign intelligence people. But now they're realizing that they've jumped the shark. They've tied into something much, much bigger, and the evidence is overwhelming. And it's not like you can just come out and give us half the story. Because too many of these things, is obvious, could not happen without the President of the United States. These things do not happen without the President knowing about it. You do not expand the raw intelligence, flowing raw intelligence, to 17 agencies 3 weeks before you're out of office with a new incoming administration coming in. That's just insane. And you wouldn't have all those unmaskings without the President knowing. You wouldn't have launched something like Operation Crossfire Hurricane. I thought before that Obama would have had to know about it, but I thought it was Strzok and McCabe, maybe Comey, really driving that. But now we're learning it was Obama that ordered Peter's been stroking us to start Operation Crossfire Hurricane. Obama, up to his eyeballs in this. Of course, we're hearing that Trump may be meeting with Kim Jong-un. He may show up at the DMZ for a little handshake or whatever. They recently exchanged a couple letters, and things are going pretty well, but I think Trump would like to see more progress. So we'll wait and see, but that'd be pretty neat, I think, if Trump, while he's over in Seoul, goes over to the DMZ and meets Kim. It'd be a great photo op, that's for sure, for both of them. So now we've got Trump trolling Hillary, As we all know, the Right Reverend Clinton is just sitting back waiting for her plan to fully develop so she can throw her hat in the ring, based on the fact that she's the only one who gives the demon rats even a snowball's chance in hell of being able to win or beat Trump. And she couldn't beat him in 2016. She damn sure ain't going to beat him in 2020. So we got Trump saying in this interview with NBC, he says he would rather run against Biden than face Hillary again, because he says Hillary, at least, she was smart, tough, ruthless, vicious, and not very sleepy, whereas he says Biden is sleepy. Is Trump trolling Hillary? I think he is. I think he's doing the same thing pretty much what we're all doing in a way, which is saying, hey, look at that field of Democrats. You know, the only one who really, just based on the fact that he was previously the VP for Obama, who could even belong on that stage with Trump, would be Biden, and Trump will just destroy him, and everyone knows it. It's not even close. I mean, it's not even close. The brain power just isn't there for Biden. He just doesn't have the brain power to compete with someone like Trump. Trump will destroy him. It will be embarrassing. And when you look across that stage, there just literally is not anyone there. 20 some odd Democrats, literally Biden is the only one who could be on the same stage with Trump and not just get blown out of the room. And even Biden would get blown out of the room, but at least he's got the, credentials. None of these other people even have that. And the only other person out there is the Rotten Reverend. And that is what her peeps are secretly telling people behind the scenes. And who are the two operatives who are working for the Rotten Reverend Clinton behind the scenes right now? Going to the Wall Street Journal, going to the New York Times, going to the big donors, going to the DNC, the DCCC, and whispering in their ear. Who are those two operatives? Well, let me tell you who they are. They are Mark Penn and Andrew Stein. And how do we know that? Because they just wrote an article, an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, basically laying out Hillary 4.0. They have now put out the first article saying, hey, Hillary's the one. She's going to be there in the field. She's going to be there for 2020, and she's going to be the nominee. She never said she wasn't going to run. She said she wasn't running. And at the time she wasn't. But pretty soon she will be. She's just waiting for all the dominoes to fall. She's out there raising money, campaigning. She's never broken up her organization. It's still in place. She's ready to kickstart it all again. She's putting everything in place. She's had her people working behind the scenes. She's probably behind a lot of the stuff that's dividing these candidates right now and forcing all that, because that certainly wouldn't come from the DNC or the DCCC. They wouldn't want to see these people attacking each other. They want to see them attacking Trump. Somebody is meddling here, and it's the Rotten Reverend using her henchmen, Mark Penn and Andrew Stein. And now they've written that first op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. And what's that going to do? Everyone's now going to read that article, all the other journalists, and they're going to get their marching orders. Okay, now it's time to start talking about, really, has anyone considered Hillary? I mean, she's still out there. She's really never said she wasn't going to run. And look at the field. Is there anyone there that we think can beat Trump? The only one that's even reasonably, well, there's two, Hickenlooper and Biden are the only two that are not totally gone over the left-wing fence. They're the only two, and they have no chance of winning. And now Biden looks like he's on his way out the door. And the quicker the better for him, if he takes my advice. Which means all they have is Hillary. They're going to have to draft Hillary. It's the fake draft Hillary campaign that I called about 3 days after the election in 2016. One more thing that I think is very interesting before I go. Mollie Hemmingway's recent article, where Mollie Hemmingway is saying that Mueller was the insurance policy. We already know that Mueller did not put that team together. That team drafted Mueller. That team was put together by Weissman and the Lawfare Group, along with McCabe. They're the ones who selected Mueller. Mueller didn't select them. They selected him. I knew that. I thought members of Congress knew that, but apparently they don't, because people keep saying that's the question they want to ask. Why ask the question? We should know it. We've known it for a long time. We're going to talk more about these hearings tomorrow. Thanks so much. Get your votes in for Dumbass of the Week. See y'all. Bye.